and he is now running for governor of Texas. Please welcome Allen West.
Into my doggone time. Who's the timekeeper?
There isn't one.
There's no time. Okay. All right, I get to just go on and on and on. But we'll be out here for Monday Night Football, but I don't know who's playing tonight. So. Well, what a pleasure and an honor to be here. I think this is my 7th or 8th time speaking for the True Texas Project, and we've launched some great organizations out as far as Lubbock. And how many of you all know that Lubbock is the largest sanctuary city for life in the United States of America? And also, just recently, we launched a True Texas Project organization. Guess where? In McAllen, Texas, in the Rio Grande Valley. So the message is getting out. And you are starting to see so many people across the state of Texas identifying based upon their principles and values. And that's what I want you to think about. Those constitutional conservative principles and values that resonate anywhere across the United States of America. You know, yesterday was Sunday. Some of the most conservative people in the United States of America were yesterday. Yep. If you go into the inner city communities in black churches, they're conservative. Yep. Because salvation is an individual thing. Mm-hmm. We don't come together as a collective, in a group, and we hug, and all of a sudden we pray ourselves, and we get everyone blessed, and you can be saved. That's an individual decision. But the reason why we need organizations like this is that you're foot soldiers. And you've got to be able to go out there and take that message so that people understand that what they're jumping up and down and shouting hallelujah about on Sunday, it needs to resonate from Monday through Saturday. Okay? And that's one of the key missions that you all have to go out there and do that. I want to talk to you, I guess, since there's no timer, I'll just take about 20, 25 minutes, and then we'll open up the questions. But we are facing probably one of the most interesting times. There's a Chinese curse that says, may you live in interesting times. But especially for us here in Texas. Now, I want you to understand that what we see happening in Texas is purposeful. What we see happening in Texas is intentional. Because the progressive socialist left understands one thing, that they will never, ever be able to control the United States of America until they control one state. And that's the Lone Star State. But today, I had one of those great opportunities. And you all should just feel so blessed that you live in this area. We do. Because today, we do. Women always got to have that last word. You know? They're married 32 years, got 2 daughters. You know, they always finish a sentence. But today, I had the opportunity to do a historical narration of the San Jacinto battlefield. Wow. How many people here have walked the San Jacinto battlefield? See, every single one of you here, you need to walk the San Jacinto battlefield. You need to take your children to the San Jacinto battlefield. You need to take your grandchildren to the San Jacinto battlefield. Because when France stood up here and she held out the American flag and the Lone Star flag, the reason why we can have that Lone Star flag is because of what happened just up the road on the 21st of April of 1836. Because when you think about what was going on, people that wanted liberty and freedom, when someone decided they would be a dictator, they violated the Constitution of 1824. Sound familiar? And all of a sudden people stood up and they wanted their freedom. They wanted their liberty. And that dictator put together an armed force to come and try to suppress them. And even though they had significant defeats, some people would say that's reason to quit. At the Alamo, where 183 made a stand, being led by a 26-year-old. Think about what 26-year-olds are doing in Texas today. Do we still raise 26-year-olds that would stand on freedom's ramparts, draw a line in the sand, write that incredible letter of 24 February 1836? If they don't do it, it's our fault that they aren't doing it. Mm-hmm. When you think about those men who surrendered down there at Goliad, La Bahia, and they were marched in. And because Santa Anna had risen the black flag, which meant no quarter, and every single one of them was massacred. James Fannin was the last one, Colonel Fannin. He was shot point blank in the face. But even knowing these things, when those men and even the women who left their homes, burned bridges, burned their farms so that the Mexican cavalry and the Mexican soldiers would not be able to eat off their lands, and somehow they made their way. They came to a division, a point in the road, where they could have turned north and gone up to Nacogdoches, or they could turn south and come here. Sam Houston did not give an order to turn south. Some men at the head of that column decided they were going to turn south. And they found their way to that battlefield over there. There are only about 783 to 800 of them. And 500 yards away was one of the most professional, highly regimented, one of the best cavalries that the world knew at that time, under the command of General Santa Anna, 1,200 to 1,300.
Yep.
But on that incredible day of the 21st of April, 1836, the Mexicans got up and they figured there would be an attack at dawn, because that's what most people do. You attack early in the morning. It didn't come. They figured they would come at noon. They didn't come. And what did the Mexicans under Santa Anna do? They stood down. They went and had a little siesta. And the Texians rose up. And at 4:30 p.m., the first cannon from the twin sisters shot. And in 18 minutes, it was over.
Yep.
Because they shouted, remember the Alamo. Remember La Bahia. Remember Goliad. And they charged that field over a superior force. Half of the Mexicans were killed, slaughtered. Texians, only 11 people were lost in that battle. What does that tell you? When you have something that is burning in your heart, friend, when you believe in liberty and freedom, the odds don't matter. What you're facing, it doesn't matter. That's the story of America. That's the story of Texas. That's your story if you choose to write it. And you all should be the ones that write it, because you live under the shadow of the obelisk that is there, that is 15 feet higher than the Washington Monument.
Biggest one in the world.
Did you know that?
Yes, sir. We're all proud.
Because everything is bigger in Texas, right? But understand that warriors move to the sound of the guns. That's what we're taught in the military. We don't run away. We run to it.
To it.
And so many people, when they knew what was happening here in Texas, they came to Texas to stand and fight. The future president of the Republic of Texas was on that battlefield. The future vice president of the Republic of Texas was on that battlefield. The future secretary of war of the Republic of Texas was on that battlefield. You're the guardians of something that is very special. And your challenge now, if you're going to be part of the true Texas project, is to remember that true Texas history. Because right now, just the same as the 1824 Constitution, we have a constitutional crisis in the United States of America.
Yep.
And if you don't believe that, you've been going to the CBD store or whatever. You've been smoking something really funny. Because when I think about the fact, Texas being a sovereign state, became a state in 1845, but no one is standing up for the sovereignty of Texas. The Constitution that we have, the Constitution that, how many soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, Coast Guardsmen we have here? The Constitution that you all took an oath to support and defend has in there a clause. It's called the Guarantee Clause. There are two things that the federal government is supposed to guarantee to every state in the Union. Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution. Number one, it's a Republican form of government. What's a Republican form of government? It doesn't mean a Republican Party. Absolutely not. A Republican form of government means that you respect the individual, their rights, their freedoms, and their liberties. The second part is the rule of law. And the other thing that every state in the Union is supposed to be guaranteed is to be protected from invasion.
Yep.
That's right.
So we have a federal government that is not abiding by their Constitution, just the same as Santa Anna came in and was not abiding by the 1824 Constitution. And here people stood up. We need you to stand up. When you think about the issues that we have with this medical freedom, and y'all know I had a little bout with Mr. Wuhan coronavirus, but I didn't get a shot. Ain't got a shot. I went out there and studied and found out all the other protocols. There are so many other protocols out there. Monoclonal antibody therapy, ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, zinc, all of these things that are out there. Budesonide nebulizer treatment. But why is it that in the state of Texas no one is talking about all of these other protocols, therapies, and treatments that you can make the decision to take yourself? Because show me in the Constitution of the United States of America where it says that the federal government has a right, enumerated power, to say what goes into your body. It ain't there, okay? But you all have to make a decision to have the leaders that stand up against these unconstitutional actions. I find it unconscionable that a person that calls himself the President of the United States of America will say these two things. Remember when he said that no amendment in the Constitution is absolute?
Yeah. Right.
And remember during the debacle of Afghanistan? When he all of a sudden called the press conference, and the press conference he started out by saying, this ain't about your freedom. Everything in the United States of America, everything in Texas is about your freedom. If it's not about your freedom, it's wrong. It's unconstitutional. That's why you got to stand up and understand, being a true Texan, being a true American, you must stand and fight for a Republican form of government. When you have people like Terry McAuliffe that is standing up there saying that parents have no right to be able to decide what their children are being taught, that's an affront to every single one of us. Because they're trying to usurp parental authority. But don't think that that's just something happened far and away in Virginia. Tomorrow there's a vote with the Texas State Board of Education as to whether or not critical race theory, social, emotional learning, and all of these other things in the TEKS, the Texas Education Knowledge Standards, will be taught to your children. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, DEI. I got it, ma'am. You checking me, all right? I'm good. The colonel didn't have too many bumps on the head when he jumped out of there. But good point. You've got to know these things. That's why you come together in groups and organizations like this, to be informed, to be educated, to be motivated, to be activated, to go out. And how many of you all know who your State Board of Education member is? Someone needs to find out so you can get their number. You can start calling, leaving messages, sending emails tonight and definitely tomorrow morning. If not, then you're going to lose your educational freedom. 2 years ago, we did not see a lot of people going to school board meetings, but now we see people going to school board meetings. We see people that are running for school board. I think there are some people here tonight that are going to be running for school board. Raise your hand. Stand up. Be proud of that. True Texas Project is the grassroots movement. Too many people are focused on everything that's going up there in Washington, D.C. The fight for America is in Texas. Yep. And the fight for Texas is in all of our local elected offices, your city council offices, your school board offices, your county commission offices. That's why we have this organization. And you've got to be engaged, and you've got to go out there and support these candidates that are trying to do the fight for you. But unfortunately, most times, what's the turnout for what I call the most important elected position in the United States of America, school board? Normally the turnout, 7%, 8%.
Not even.
Well, back there in the back, there's a man that I call the Wizard of Wimberley. That's Mr. Tracy Dean. They just had a school board election in Wimberley, Texas. What was your turnout percentage?
Right at 40%.
Wow. They flipped the school board in Wimberley, Texas, because all of the blue folks were coming down out of Austin, just the same as in Southlake, Texas. They flipped it because of the Cultural Competency Action Plan in the Carroll ISD, just the same as up the road in Cy-Fair ISD. They flipped the school board there. That's why we have the True Texas Project, for you to get engaged at the local level and start flipping these school boards so that our children are being taught and not indoctrinated.
Yeah.
But all that being said, the Republican form of government, but the most important thing is to protect every state in the Union from invasion.
Yep.
That's what the founders called it. And that's what is happening here.
Yep.
What we have happening on our border, 30 years ago, maybe some of us, when Operation Desert Shield, Desert Storm, we left our homes. We deployed to go protect the border of Kuwait. But here we are here, we're not even protecting our own border. We have hundreds of thousands of people coming across the border illegally into the state of Texas and being ferried out. We have people getting bus tickets and plane tickets, $1,300 to $1,400 of taxpayer money, and going out all across the United States of America. And guess what? They ain't getting told to get a shot in the arm.
That's right.
But you are. And they're landing in New York. They're landing in Tennessee. They're landing in Florida. As a matter of fact, a couple of weeks ago, a 46-year-old man, father of 4, was bludgeoned to death by an illegal immigrant who came across the border here and said he was a 16 or 17-year-old unaccompanied male. Come to find out he was 22 from Honduras. Texas, ladies and gentlemen, is the #1 state in the United States of America for human and sex trafficking.
Harris County is the #1.
Dallas and Houston
Yep.
are the top 2 cities in the United States of America for sex trafficking.
Yep.
Tonight, right now, some little boy, some little girl, right up I-45, is being sexually abused by an adult. Should not be happening. Cartels are making $25 to $30 million a week on just human trafficking, not the drug trafficking, not the sex trafficking, just on the human trafficking, 25 to 30 million. We're aiding and abetting human and sex trafficking.
Yep.
Because I've been down to the border. Just recently, how many people here know where Kenny County is? Bracketville. In between Del Rio, Valverde County, and Uvalde. Sheriff Brad Hill, and this is what they taught me in the military, as a good commander, you don't go out and get on a boat and go up and down the river or go down in the middle of the day. The cockroaches don't come out in the middle of the day. The cockroaches come out at night.
Yep.
And so I'm there with Sheriff Brad Hill from 11:30 to about 2 in the morning in Bracketville. Bracketville, Kenny County, 1,400 square miles. How many sheriff's deputies does Brad Coe have in Kenny County?
Maybe 5.
6.
All right.
2 were on shift that night. The DPS were on Highway 90 and 277. Border Patrol, they had their vehicles parked along the road. So I said, hey, Sheriff, let's get off the dirt road, go through a couple of these gates. Let's go down in the bushes. So that's where you find out what's going on. Wasn't nobody in the bushes. Nobody's out there with their feet on the Rio Grande River.
Nope.
And Kenny County has 16 miles that runs along the Rio Grande River. Talk to your friends. Women who are afraid to go to bed at night if they live alone. Because illegals are coming in and ransacking their kitchens overnight. Children that aren't going out at night at all. Nobody wants to take a walk. These cartels are firing across the border into the state of Texas. Last time I read international law, you know what that means? That's an act of war. But we're not doing anything about it. As a matter of fact, we have deployed our National Guard. Some of them don't even have weapons. And I've seen it. Some of them not even in uniform. No flat vest, body armor, no helmet. They're just down there. You know what they're doing down there? They're bringing people across, helping people into the state of Texas, where the Border Patrol picks them up, puts them on a bus, and they take them over to a non-governmental organization that gives them a plane ticket, a bus ticket, $1,300 to $1,400, and then they're gone.
Human smuggling.
Yep.
The end of the year, 2 million. 2 million will have crossed. We got to stop that. How do you stop that? 26,000 in the Texas military. But all right, time on task. Stay with me. Stay with the old colonel. I'm getting it. 26,000 in the Texas military department. I've sat down with some guys, 5,000 to 7,000 on the right infiltration routes to interdict this stuff. You stop it. See, we put all our resources over here in Del Rio because that's where we figured they were going to come because they kept coming. Well, guess where they're coming across now? They're coming across in La Jolla. Why? Because the enemy improvises, adapts, and then they overcome.
Yep.
And so now we're playing whack-a-mole. I know you're saying build a wall. We can build that wall, but right now what it's doing is we're putting down a fence. What can you do to a fence? You cut through a fence. That's what has happened. But what we need to do is, this is not about having a contiguous wall, like a Great Wall of China or Hadrian's Wall, because in Kenny County, guess what? That's a floodplain. You don't want to put a wall on a floodplain, but what you do want to do is put a wall in those areas where you can channel people to come into certain spots where your aerial surveillance, your ground sensor surveillance, and your boots on the ground can immediately interdict people. We've got to take over the responsibility the federal government is abdicated by the Constitution. We need to arrest, deport people, and we don't arrest them for trespassing. You arrest them for coming into our country illegally. You collect DNA, you get them into a database, and you send them back. Why do we have the separation of the families? Because a lot of these kids are being recycled. That's right. Because when you're telling people that you're going to allow family units to come in, guess what the cartels do? They go out and they get kids from other poor families, and they match them up with people, and the kids come across, they say they're a family member, we're not checking, they're not getting any DNA, and then they're released, and somehow the kids get recycled back around, and they come back across because we don't have a database. Or the kids go into the sex trafficking. So that's what we're doing. The cartels are no different from the Taliban.
That's right.
This is an insurgency that we're fighting. The Taliban used opium. I spent 2.5 years in Afghanistan. They used opium. These guys, fentanyl, methamphetamines, and marijuana to fuel their interests. And so what we've got to do, if we designate them as a transnational narco-criminal terrorist organization, guess what you do? You go after their money. You go after their finance. I guarantee you there are banks in the state of Texas that's got cartel money.
Oh, yeah.
When you look up the road in Houston, 3 months ago, a stash house with 90 illegal immigrants. Who's selling them these houses? Who's paying for these houses? We've got to go and freeze those assets and seize those assets. These non-governmental organizations that are down there basically becoming travel agencies for illegal immigrants. We got to revoke their licenses. They're 501c3s. It's very simple. You don't allow them to operate here. And if they try to operate here, you hit them with a state felony, aiding and abetting human and sex trafficking, and also colluding with a terrorist organization. Those are the type of steps that we have to make. But we have to have that type of courageous leadership that says, I'm not going to be bought off by anybody. I'm not going to be afraid of doing that, because nobody else has taken on those drug cartels. The president of Mexico ain't in charge of Mexico. There's 4 or 5 different cartels that's in charge. And we got to step up here, and we got to do what is necessary. We've got to do exactly what those men did up there on San Jacinto. We've got to take this battlefield, and we got to understand it is ours to own, and we got to charge. No one wins on defense. And that's exactly what we're playing right now. And we got to look at our sheriffs. Sheriffs are not like municipal police officers. Sheriffs are constitutional officers. And we need to help them and build up those sheriff's departments so you don't have a man like Bradco with 6 sheriff deputies. He has 1,400 square miles, 16 miles along the Rio Grande River. He can't cover it all. And so that's why you have the high-speed drive-thrus and everything that are coming across. See, we can talk about property taxes. That's not a hard thing to fix. We can talk about the grid, the electrical grid. That's not a hard thing. Just stop with this Green New Deal stupidity and stop giving 23 to 26% to, when it's over. But you can solve all of these things. But if you don't protect the sovereignty of the state of Texas, which the Constitution of the United States of America enables us to do in Article 1, Section 10, Clause number 3, then we're not going to be the Texas that true Texans are supposed to stand up for. Come together. Enjoy these opportunities. But when you leave out of here, you got to have a call to action. That's the important thing. Let me close on this. There are a lot of great people that have stood up in the history of the United States of America. My favorite military hero is a guy by the name of Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, who stood at Little Round Top, professor of rhetoric from Maine, and all of a sudden he had the infamous duty of protecting the entire Army of the Potomac. Read about Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain. But here is someone that I want to share with you that I think will make an impact for each and every one. The story of America, the story of Texas, is about ordinary people that do extraordinary things. That's why you're here right now. And that moment is coming, it says in the book of Esther, for a time such as this. Don't think it's a coincidence, and now is your time. Just the same as it was that time for those men up there, the same as the time for the people during the Revolutionary War era. This is your time. What history will you make?
Amen.
There was a woman that no one would have ever known who she was. She had a regular routine every single day. But on one day, she decided that she would not follow that regular routine. On one day, she decided that she would say no, that she would make a stand. That woman's name is Rosa Parks.
That's right.
Rosa Parks had been getting on that bus in Montgomery, Alabama every doggone day. But then for some odd reason, she decided on one day, I'm not going to the back of the bus. I'm going to sit right here. So that a kid born in 1961 in a blacks-only hospital could grow up and become a lieutenant colonel in the United States Army, command 600 in combat. To be a member of the United States House of Representatives. To be a member of, to be the chairman of the largest state Republican Party in the country, and now be standing here running for governor. That's what she decided. And she didn't care about the consequences, the ramifications thereof. She said that this is my moment. Every single one of you has got to find and search within your hearts. What is your Rosa Parks moment? When will you make that stand? Not for yourself, but for those who come after you.
Amen.
Because Mark Twain once said, there are two most important days in your life.
You're born until you find out why.
Can I still say it, Chip?
Yeah, sorry.
I mean, I got the amen corner over here, you know? Deaconess. But anyhow,
I've been called worse.
it's the day that you're born. 7 February 1961, Hughes Spalding Hospital, Atlanta, Georgia, blacks only hospital. And then the day that you find out why. How many of you here know your second most important day? For me, it was very simple. Going through Checkpoint Charlie and seeing East Berlin in 1985. I understood why I had to man a position on freedom's ramparts. I understood why my dad manned a position on freedom's ramparts when he fought in World War II. Why my older brother was up there on that wall and he fought in Vietnam. Why my nephew is on that wall right now, a lieutenant colonel in the Army. Each and every one of you, you need to find that Rosa Parks moment, because the Rosa Parks moment is the key to answering the second most important day of your life. If you're a true Texan, within the next 48 hours, you will be able to answer that question of the second most important day of your life. And maybe it's tonight. And you finally realize this is a contact sport. And there's a person out there like a Robert Francis O'Rourke. But I want you to understand something. They're willing to take it away from you. This past summer, there was a book that was produced by 3 Texans. It was called Forgetting the Alamo, The Rise and Fall of an American Myth. If they can destroy the history of this great state, then they will define what a true Texan is. And a true Texan ain't no progressive, socialist, stinking, Marxist, communist, piece of you know what. Okay? So get out there and take your San Jacinto battlefield and make a stand for all that is right and true. God bless you all. What are your questions?
My name's Mark Wyatt, and those that know me usually know I talk about some things. Last month we had our sheriff and our 2 constables that work in Kenny County with the sheriff down there, and they reported on what's going on down there. Now, he's right. The federal government has absconded their responsibility of protecting our borders. The problem is, and I had this conversation with these men, and I'm like, so why don't we escort them out and do our own thing? Well, we can't because the Constitution says we can't. Okay, so my mind comes to, what are you going to do as governor? What are we going to do as Texans? You know, they told me mount up the militia and go down there. Because the militia would actually have more power on private property than local law enforcement would.
Sounds like a plan.
So, you know,
Yeah, but
I mean,
the problem with the Texas State Guard,
State Guard.
because I was in the Texas State Guard, the Texas State Guard has no equipment.
Yep.
They have no weapons or whatever. And so what you have to do is really basically go in and rework the mission of the Texas State Guard. But you have, like I said, 26,000 members of the Texas National Guard that can, if you have the courage to do it and understand that the Constitution gives you, as a governor, the right to be able to use your National Guard on that border to protect the sovereignty. Furthermore, the Texas State Constitution in Article 4, Section 7 lists one of the most important duties and responsibilities of the governor of the state of Texas as Commander-in-Chief of the Texas Military Department. 2 words: repel invasions. So we have everything that is right and true. We have the 10th Amendment. We have all of these things that talk about state sovereignty. But for whatever reason, we have a recalcitrance and a reticence to be able to go out there and do it. I would love someone to tell me, hey, Colonel, you can't put the guard down there. Hey, Colonel, you can't arrest, illegals coming across the border. Hey, Colonel, you can't go after the cartels. Well, then, what are you going to do? Okay? Because if you're not doing it by the Constitution, this is what it says, a guarantee, then I'm going to do it, and the Constitution says that I can. And so that's why I'm saying it is time to have people that got some cojones, man. That's just the bottom line. And so everything that I listed and told you tonight, that's what I would do. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so flipping school boards is great, but it takes sometimes years of time to get a majority on a school board. Meanwhile, principals, superintendents, teachers are breaking Texas education code by directing the moral upbringing of our children against our will, teaching them they can choose their own gender. Parents have filed official grievances to TEA. We're dismissed. The TEA dismisses us. So I want to know, what can you do to clean up TEA?
I just fire everybody.
Well, I want to hear what can you do to fix TEA?
You fire everybody. You fire them.
Start again.
I mean, I don't get, when I was a commander, I had a lieutenant that sucked. I didn't keep the lieutenant. I told him, your ass is gone. Okay, so Mike Morath, and if you notice, I already put that out on a press release and a statement today. You're going to clean house in the TEA. You're going to clean house in the Texas Medical Board, Texas Nursing Board. These are people that are standing in the way of your liberty and your freedom. But let me tell you something else that is very disconcerting for me. Being the chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, you can go and advocate for those legislative priorities. And when people say, well, why would you step down from being the chairman and run for governor? Because as governor, I can make those legislative priorities happen. We can't get school choice passed in the state of Texas. How unconscionable is it that we have Republicans that sit as majority in the Texas State House, majority in the Texas State Senate, all the statewide, and we can't get school choice passed?
Yep.
So that's another thing that you could do. When you step up there in 2023 at the State of the State address, as the governor, you list your priorities, school choice is there. And so that's what we have to do. And so I can meet you from the top and you come up from the grassroots and we whack them in the middle. But what I'm telling you is that you have got to start taking this thing over and getting the right people in these school board positions and lay out a plan. Who goes into a battle without a plan? Now, I'm not saying it has to be a perfect plan, because normally when you try to come up with a perfect plan, you become wedded to that plan and you're not able to adjust and adapt. But every single one of you should sit around and look at all of these ISDs and start looking, when is this person up? When is that person up? How we can get rid of the superintendent? Lay out your strategic vision and your strategic plan. What does it say in the Bible? My people suffer for lack of knowledge and vision. And that's what you have to have. You have to have vision. It is not about the battle that is happening right now. A good leader sees the battle way out. And that's what I want you to do. So yeah, we just clean house in these agencies. Yes, ma'am.
What do you propose to do to protect our power grid?
It's very simple. When you think about what happened on Valentine's Day of this year, we, for whatever reason, have given over 23 to 26% of our energy distribution to an unreliable source, and that is wind and solar. And so what happened with those ERCOT operators who are sitting there, they see what's supposed to be a 23% output drop down to 3%. And then they went and tried to fire up these natural gas plants, because we're the Saudi Arabia natural gas. But guess what? No one had winterized the natural gas plants that would be the backups, and so their pipes burst. So number one, what you have to do is put wind and solar at an equitable distribution that they can handle and hold them accountable if they don't. They can't be at 23 to 26%. That's a failure. The other thing you have to do is make sure that you're winterizing these plants. And but for whatever reason, that's not happening. Let me tell you what's going on. There was a power company that made $2.3 billion during the freeze. But they wrote a $1 million campaign check to somebody. You know who that was, right?
That's who that was, yeah.
Think about this. Think about this.
Hot Wheels.
Conroe, Texas. I want you to think about this. In Conroe, Texas, an 11-year-old boy froze to death in his bed. Mothers, can you imagine what it would be like to be putting blanket upon blanket upon blanket over your child? To try to console your child, to try to protect your child from something that is unseen, that you have no ability to be able to affect. And then to go in there and see that your child is frozen to death. Dads, can you imagine what it would be like to try to console your wife in your home that you have provided your family, and your child, your son, is just frozen to death? But yet an energy company made $2.3 billion while an 11-year-old boy and 190 some odd others froze to death. And the governor accepted a $1 million campaign contribution check from the company that made $2.3 billion while an 11-year-old boy froze to death. I don't care about them giving checks to me. It's about doing what is right.
We need a new voice for them too.
We got to bring back nuclear. We got to bring back our clean coal. We closed down 3 coal-fired plants. We have our own grid, and we need to divide ERCOT into regions and make sure in those regions we have backup and redundancy so this never happens. But the most important thing, we got to hold these guys accountable to do a winterization. If you read the Farmer's Almanac, they're predicting a pretty cold winter coming up.
I attended a seminar a couple years ago with Senator Bob Hall, and at that time they said
My
that
senator.
they said that it was for the utility companies could charge $3 per customer to secure the grid, and $3 per customer. I don't think there's anybody in here who wouldn't pay an extra $3.
But he didn't even need to do that. What just happened last week that the governor signed? SB 8, $16 billion of federal recovery money. You know how much money went toward hardening our grid out of that $16 billion? Zero. You know what the price tag? About $1.7 billion. And we didn't use that. But we did, give money to colleges and universities for construction projects.
Of course they did.
So, yes, sir. Ken.
Colonel, you need to reiterate the National Guard status as a force. I've been approaching, out there recruiting our Texas Independents volunteers to stand up for us to be voted in the election coming up March the 1st. We need Texans to sign the petition for us to become a republic again. This gentleman right here would be a great leader for our republic. But as a National Guard, do we even have, I've been approached by people saying we don't have a National Guard that can stand up to, do we have a military that is able with the equipment and the training that goes along with logistics and preparedness?
Well, I've heard some
Readiness?
Yeah, I've heard some very hair-raising stories about the readiness of the Texas National Guard. I can't confirm or deny the things that I've been told, but it's a very serious situation here, especially when you have 1,254 miles of border that you share with a destabilized country. Your National Guard needs to be as sharp as any active duty military organization. And I will tell you that, going in there, looking at who are the key leadership positions in the Texas Military Department. If we don't have war fighters and warriors, they gotta go. Just the same as the guy in education, whatever.
Plan on reorganizing, maybe getting the right.
Oh, look, I mean, it's absolutely, it's all the things that, for 22 years I understood and I did to make sure that you had the right capability and capacity.
The logistics for the force, you gotta really, that's a big chore. Restructure the guard to get the right personnel to run it. The report, give you a status update. Because your men is only as good as the supervision they get.
Absolutely.
Supplies they have.
That's leadership 101. Yes, ma'am.
How can I help with your campaign?
You can go back there and see Spencer. You can sign up and you can get all kind of, good updates or whatever. And the thing is that we want to be able to build that cohort of volunteers so that we can get folks out there and start doing block walking and things of that nature. Okay. And in certain areas, we're already starting to block walking. So I will tell you, things are going very well. I'll spend the night down here in Webster tomorrow morning. If you're driving at like 6 in the morning, you see a black guy out running, don't hit me, okay? Because I'll be out doing my little 4 or 5 mile run. All right, don't hit me. If you don't kill me, I will choke you. Okay. But tomorrow I got to head up to Buda, and then over to Columbus, Texas, and then Wednesday I head up to Henrietta, Texas. From Henrietta, Texas, I'll go out to Brewster County, Alpine. Brewster is the largest landmass county in the state of Texas. They're really having problems. You know why? Because the single military age males are the one coming across the border out there because they're spread thin. And then I'll come back here on Saturday to Baytown. So if some of y'all want to be bored by me again, I'll be in Baytown this coming Saturday. But I'm so humble at the response that we're receiving. And I'm just a simple soldier. I'm just a simple servant to this great nation, to God, and now to the great state of Texas. Yes?
Yes, first of all, I want to thank you for your service.
Never thank me for doing what's right. That's what my dad taught me.
Okay. My comment is, and my question is, I believe it was back when you were a senator in Florida.
No, member of Congress, House of
Member of
Representatives.
Congress, I'm sorry. And you literally called out the communists and the Marxists.
Yeah, I don't know.
And I thought, this guy's badass. I got to follow him. This is pretty interesting. And I know you caught a lot of flack for that, but
You only take flack when you're over the target.
that's it. That's exactly right. My question is like, how did you know that?
How many people
I
here?
believe it, and I had heard all kinds of conspiracies.
Did y'all hear the question? Okay. What I'll do is I'll do the Phil Donahue. Okay, I'll run it.
Okay, my question is when the colonel was in the Congress in Florida, I recalled him calling out the Marxists and communists in our government. Okay, and I was wondering, I thought this guy is badass. I need to follow him, keep an eye on him. Because I had heard these things, but I'd never heard a congressman or a senator bring it up, of course. So I just asked him, how did he know that? And also, just real quick, in the military, there's a lot going on there, too, that I'm sure you're aware of, also being in the military. To whom much is given, much is required. So tell us a little bit, if you would.
There's a whole lot I got to unpack. When 1982, when I was commissioned as an officer in the United States Army, one of our mandatory reading books was The Art of War by Sun Tzu.
Read it?
One of Sun Tzu's great quotes is that to know your enemy and to know yourself and to know the battlefield environment, in all battles you will always be successful. If you know your enemy but know not yourself and know not the battlefield, for every battle that you win, you will lose a battle. If you do not know yourself, if you do not know the enemy, if you do not know the battlefield environment, you will never claim victory on any battlefield. So if I'm going to be up there in Washington, D.C. as a representative, I got to understand the political ideology of the other side. And America, this is not about R&D, folks. This is about how do you see the relationship of the individual to the institution of government. And there's two very different and distinct philosophies of governance. It is constitutional conservatism, which is the foundation of this country, and it's progressive socialism, Marxism, statism, communism. Socialism is an economic model. How many folks here have read the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx? See, that's your homework assignment. You ain't ready to be on this battlefield unless you read the Communist Manifesto. The property tax system that we have here in the state of Texas is based upon the planks and philosophies of Karl Marx. It's a progressive tax system, and Karl Marx believed in the elimination of private property rights. We just talked about this whole thing with our schools. The first person that came out and talked about state control of education was Karl Marx. Prior to that, we were doing homeschooling. Abraham Lincoln, in log cabins and things of that nature. And so what we find ourselves, we have fallen into a trap where socialism and Marxism is very much so ingrained in our economic systems. And what is socialism? Wealth redistribution. What do you hear people say? Everybody got, you got to pay your fair share. Nationalizing economic production, oil and gas industry, healthcare, everything comes up under the government. Build back better America. That's nationalizing economic production. Right. Who would have ever thought that we would be paying people to stay at home and not work instead of getting out and work? You know the two ways, and write this down. This is pretty smart. I came up with this all by myself. But the two ways that you can enslave people. You work them for no pay, or you pay them for no work. And there's only one party, one group that has done both of those things in the United States of America. The creation and expansion of a welfare nanny state. That's what they want to do. Social egalitarianism. You talk about this diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're not supposed to be equal. God didn't make us equal. I'm 5'9" and I can't jump. I can't slam dunk. I ain't equal. I mean, I got screwed over. But I have different gifts. But how do you have people that sit around and say, we're going to make everyone equal? That's called social egalitarianism. That's the difference between equality of opportunity and equality of outcomes. And what's the last thing about socialism? Secular humanism.
God is nowhere.
Marx. You're killing me. But Marx was an avowed atheist. This country was founded on Judeo-Christian faith heritage and principles. Your inalienable rights don't come from the government and the little g. It's God with a big G. We need to continue to say that and understand that. So that's why it was really easy to look over to Maxine Waters and some of these other folks and say, oh, you look at Maxine Waters, it's bad, man. You can turn to stone looking at Maxine Waters. I'm just being honest, man. Okay, I'm just saying. But the thing is this, we have to have the courage to call them out. And so 10 years ago when I'm saying that, and Republicans, John Boehner's up there, can't understand, now you get the Republicans in trouble. I said, tell me where I was wrong. You have an organization called the Congressional Progressive Caucus. What are they talking about? Communism. And so now, 10 years later, they're saying this is who we are.
That's right.
So if you don't confront your enemy and call them out for what they believe in, if you want to try this Mr. Nice Guy thing, you're not going to be successful. You're not going to win. And so it didn't bother me that Republicans redistricted me out 10 years ago. And guess who Republicans just redistricted out in this latest plan? Jim Jordan. Republicans just redistricted out Jim Jordan in the state of Ohio. See, that's what they do. Because they don't want the people that are going to call them out.
Yeah.
So, and I was the #1 target. Freshman member of Congress, #1 target of the Democratic Party. Why? Because I went on the offense. And I identified it. But I want you to find that same type of courage. Okay? I'm going to move on. Yes, sir.
What are your thoughts?
First name Brandon. So, what do we say?
Let's go, Brandon!
Thank you. What are your thoughts on the recent constitutional amendments that were voted on and passed in the election a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, sure. I will tell you that I think it was the second one. People are really good with wording, and I think that's one of the reasons why there's a lawsuit against them, how they worded that second proposal. Because what they're trying to, who wants to increase debt? But that's exactly what you got out of the second proposition in the constitutional amendments. And so we have these counties that are going to be just, once again, runaway spending. And so we got to get these things under control. It's just the same thing in Texas, the state government. It's been an incredible increase in spending down there. And that's what happens with the federal government. See, when you hear people talk about baseline budget, What happens every budgeting cycle is they start from a baseline, they increase spending. When they talk about we're cutting spending, no, they're not cutting spending, they're cutting the rate of the increase of spending. They're already started at a certain level where it's already happened. What do you do in your homes every day? You do what's called zero-based budgeting. You start from zero and figure out what revenues are coming in, what can I expend. And so government has become a self-licking ice cream cone, and we've got to stop that. We've got to get it back under control. And if you want to talk about, yeah, that's a military term, self-licking ice cream cone. And so if you want to understand how do you solve the property tax issue, get a hold of the budget down there in the state of Texas and start looking at all the fraud, the waste, abuse, and everything, and turn those savings back over to you all so that you can have the property tax relief while we simultaneously transition away from property taxes. And I say we move toward a consumption-based tax. That's what we did prior to 1970. But I voted no on that amendment, the second one. I voted yes on all the others. You're welcome. Yes, sir, back in back.
What would you do about the Republican Party has, they've had the governorship, they've had the lieutenant governor, they've had the majority in the House of Representatives, majority in the Senate, but yet, what do we do in the House? We're giving Democrats committee chairmanships, and that what, as a governor, can be done about that, and what would you, as a governor, do about that?
Well, first and foremost, I will tell you, as chairman of the Republican Party of Texas, I called out Dave Phelan, and it made news when I called him a political traitor for putting Democrats in those positions. And then I don't think there are too many chairmen that would take on the sitting governor and join a lawsuit, but when the governor decided unilaterally unconstitutional, after 30 days you're supposed to call the legislature back in, even in an emergency, but he changed early voting from 2 weeks to 3 weeks, all by himself. I called him out because, that had a big effect up here in Houston and Harris County. So I will continue to do exactly what I've always done, is call out anybody when they're not doing that which is right by the Constitution of the state of Texas and also the Constitution of the United States of America. But the real question is, what are you all going to do?
Right.
Okay, who's running against Dave Phelan? And so the thing is that if you're sitting around and you're not raising up someone to challenge these individuals, then what's going to happen? What am I going to do about the governor? I'm running for freaking governor. I mean, what do you expect me to do? I said, something's going wrong here. And so, but I can affect things in my sphere of influence.
Yep.
But every single one of you has a sphere of influence.
Right.
And so what are you doing in your House district? What are you doing in your state Senate district? I had a woman up there in Dallas just railing on me. I was speaking, and she's just going off. Left side of nothing. You da. And I just asked her a simple question. I said, ma'am, who's your state senator? She said, Ted Cruz.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm serious. It's $2 fight. That's what she said. I asked one lady out in, going out west of Marble Falls. I said, ma'am, who is your state house member? And she told me who her John Cornyn, state house member. We got a problem understanding civics ourselves. Stop. Remember that thing in the Bible that says, do not go to your brother about the speck in his eye when you got a log in your own?
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're talking about our kids not getting civics education, all these things. A bunch of us old heads. We don't understand civics. Tell me, when did it become so that a mandate, edict, order, and decree was equal to a law?
Never.
No. I mean, someone comes down and says, you got to shut down your business. You say, okay.
No, you don't.
But that's not what 10,000 businesses went away.
Don't support them then.
Okay, you got to wear a mask in the airport.
Don't fly. Don't do it.
You just don't do it. I mean, I landed at Houston Hobby. I got off the airplane because I did want to catch the airplane to get down here. But nobody bothered me. But yet everyone's running around just being obey.
Right.
Obey. Mandates don't equal law. So we've got to go back and understand these things. So what I want you to do is remember the words of Benjamin Franklin on Constitution Day when a woman, probably like you, Mrs. Powell, came up to him and asked him, do we have a republic or a monarchy? He said, a republic if you can keep it. Okay? So I want you all to take some personal freaking responsibility in keeping this republic. Okay? All right, couple more. because I was in the State Guard. And I will tell you that in the State Guard, when I went out for a drill, I wasn't given a sleeping bag or whatever. I had to come with my own pillow and blankets and everything like that. We don't have vehicles, okay? So if I got called out to do something, come down here for, you know, hurricane support, I had to drive myself. We don't. Yep.
But they're helping the government within by the order of the president.
No, they're doing that by the order of the governor.
Yeah.
Yes. See, what you got to understand is that there are two ways that you activate a National Guard. It's Title 10 or Title 32. And what's the difference? Title 10 means that the president comes down and requests to activate the Guard. Title 32 means that the governor himself activates that National Guard. Much the same as you saw the National Guard that was up there doing, you know, patrol duty around the Capitol. And then, of course, the governor's pulled it back. And so what you got to understand is that when you talk about the Texas National Guard, that is part of the Texas Military Department. There are three elements to the Texas Military Department. It's the Air National Guard, it's the Ground National Guard, and it's the Texas State Guard. Now, the Air Guard and the National Guard, Army National Guard, they both have equipment, training, and all of this type of stuff. And many of them have affiliations with active duty units. One of my firing units, when I was an artillery battalion commander at Fort Hood, was Delta Battery, 2nd Battalion, 20th Field Artillery, out of the Texas National Guard. But when we wanted them to go with us to Iraq in 2003, we had to send the request for that to be done, for them to be activated. But what we've got to do, number one, the rules of engagement and the mission that's been given to the Texas National Guard, that's coming from Governor Abbott. He's the commander-in-chief of the Texas Military Department. But when you look at the Texas State Guard, because if we continue to go down the path where the Customs and Border Patrol and ICE are not doing their job, then we need to look at some type of capability that we need to have in Texas to truly guard our state.
That's what I'm saying, as governor, would you put, or at least, I know you can't solely do it because you said we're not a Republican, but would you?
No, I can do it. I'll be the commander-in-chief of the Texas military.
So would you put more money towards the State Guard because the National
Absolutely. I've already, you know, kind of talked to some people about how could that be done. All right.
I just have a comment. My nephew is in the Guard right now. He's at the border right now. He's been there over a month and he has not gotten paid. He's sleeping on the ground. It is a mess out there. His wife went out to go down to the border and it's just wide open, but
Yep.
they haven't gotten paid. And there's a lot of people that are out there, and these National Guards are
Well,
not
you know,
getting
those
paid.
Democrats that went away to
But
Washington,
they're
D.C.,
giving money to them.
they got paid $221 a
Exactly.
day. So,
Yep.
last question, ma'am.
Yes, we'd like to know what your stance on Texas is.
Sure.
And believe the people of Texas is right to vote whether they want to become their own country again.
I always stood for that. As a matter of fact, I was on Newsmax TV with Chris Salcedo, and I launched my support for HB 1359, and CNN attacked me saying, and CNN attacked me saying that I was a secessionist. But I will tell you that, you know, I'm a constitutionalist, not a secessionist. I believe the people that are in violation of the Constitution, they're the real secessionists. But here's what I want you to understand, and I've said this countless amounts of times. Texas needs to lead the United States of America. When you read the Constitution, when you read and understand the Declaration of Independence, the true power in this constitutional republic resides at the state level. The problem is we don't have the courageous leadership at the state level to push back against an onerous, intrusive, unconstitutional, lawless federal government. So I say we make that stand against the federal government first and foremost, because I'm a fighter. Before I say that I'm going to bug out, I'm going to black out you. Okay? And so we need to understand that we've got to go toe to toe. The left believes that we'll always back down. And we do. So here in Texas, just the same as 800 charged the battlefield against 1,200, and in 18 minutes, it was over. That's what happens when we come together and understand what it means to be a true Texan. God bless you all. Thank you.